What's up guys, it's Manga Time once again. I'm here today to bring you my review of Bleach 597 Winded or Winded by Shadow, and we'll get into that in a bit. But sorry this review's so late, but I literally was swamped yesterday, had no time to do this at all. College is killing me, man. Anyway, this is a pretty cool chapter. I actually liked this chapter quite a lot. It's been certainly better than the recent kind of batch we've been having. But it starts off with Lil Toto confronting Pepe, like at the end of the last chapter. Speaking of the end of last chapter, Kubo has literally reused the last panel. And something about that really doesn't sit right with me. It looks very weird that this panel has just been copy and pasted onto the beginning of this chapter. To me, that looks really weird. It's a bit lazy as well. I know it's only one panel, but it's quite a big panel, and it just looks a bit like... And it's the first one you see, so it jumps out, and you're just like... It's a bit lazy. But, you know, whatever. And Pepe's like, you know, he's cowering beneath her. He's like, Lil Toto-chan. And it's really sad, actually, to see what's become of Pepe. He had so much potential, and I was really hyped for him. And now he's just this comic relief guy who's, like, just a complete loser, sitting there in his pants, really fat, and he's just like, what? Why? I don't... Well, Kubo's decided to go down this route with this character, I don't know. I don't know where the hell Askin got Pepe was a monster from. Like I said before, I think it was possibly his personality rather than his actual strength. In that he does seem to be a bit of a dick. But then so do most of the Sturmritter. Anyway, Lil Toto advances on him. And he kind of comically tries to, like, slide backwards. I don't know why he doesn't just fight her, because he is powerful. And his love ability is, you know, pretty devastating. So I don't know why he doesn't just try and fight her, but, you know, whatever. And she summons her Volstendig, I think. And she comments that, you know, Pepe tried to kill them, so now he's to take the responsibility. This is kind of, like, I know why she's saying this, because Pepe set Meninas against her, and he even said that he was going to try and kill them all and take the credit, or he implied it anyway. But I kind of feel like we should have seen more of that. Like, all we saw was Meninas punch Lil Toto in the face. That's literally all we saw. So I don't really feel like this. Like, I guess it's justified, but like I don't know really, because that was all we saw. And now we've seen Lil Toto again. She looks like she hasn't been hurt anymore. So I think this is, you know, a little bit unjustified, but, you know, whatever. At the same time, Pepe he was trying to kill them, even though we didn't see that scene again. Anyway, and I have to say that I think there's a bit of double standards going on here, because what Giselle does is considerably worse than what Pepe's been doing, so, oh well. Anyway, Pepe's like, you know, forgive me, and then it ends with him getting eaten, basically. The title page is Lil Toto's teeth, and then there's a blood splatter, and Pepe's like screaming. And then that's all we see down in Vandenreich for this chapter, because we go back to the Royal Palace, which is awesome. And this is so cool. I just love the way this scene's done. So luckily, Korinji hasn't been off-panelled. Lots of us worried that he might have, you know, lots of us worried we might return to this scene and he'd be dead on the floor or something like that. But no, he's just in trouble. Yhwach's kind of standing there like a boss, and Korinji doesn't know what the hell's going on. For some reason, he can't land a hit on Yhwach. I mean, it's interesting that he's lost his little stick. Anyway, Yhwach's like, you know, it seems we're at an impasse, so I'm just going to let myself through. And Korinji tries to stop him. He swings his blade, but it hits the ground. And we see that Yhwach, Haschwalth, and Uryu just stroll past him. But the floor has kind of been oddly bent out of shape. And now Korinji's, you know, he's like, what's going on? He's not evading me. He's not using illusions. What the hell's happening here? Now, it's interesting that Yhwach's not trying to kill Korinji. He's just walking past him. So, I've seen a lot of theories about this. One of them being that if and when Yhwach takes over the palace, he wants to keep them alive so that he can use them as his own soldiers. That's kind of the one thing I've seen. But then there's also the fact that it's immensely disrespectful to not even try and fight your opponent, but just to walk past them. You know, that's Yhwach ultimately really looking down on the Royal Guard. So, as Yhwach seems to be getting further towards his goal, Senjumaru Shutora arrives in an awesome-looking double-page spread. She basically just lands on the ground, and then behind her, we're not entirely sure what they are. They could be Royal Guard elite soldiers. They could be like the elite soldiers of the Royal Realm. Some people have speculated that they're actually Shutara's Shikai, because there's 8 of them, and she's got like the 8 arms and stuff like that. So does she have 8 arms? Yeah, I'm sure she does. I can't really remember. But yeah, no, I when I first read it, I just chose to see them as the Royal Realm soldiers. They look freaking awesome. They kind of look like ninjas with like really cool masks on. Yeah, we get a really great part now, which has some pretty major implications. Okay, so Senjimura Shutara starts with, "It's been a while, Yhvark." Okay, so the Royal Guards have seen Yhvark before, they've met him before. That's interesting. A lot of people have theorised that to mean that Yhvark's been in the Royal Realm before. I don't necessarily think that is confirmation of that, but I think it does lend itself to that. But it could also mean that back when these guys were captains in the Soul Society, they knew Yhvark, rather than being in the Royal Realm. So Shutara is standing at the top of these stairs, like looking down on him, and she's like, "I can only interpret your self-invitation to the palace as a sign that you've lost your sanity after defeating Genryusai." So again, it's interesting that they do watch what goes on below. They just don't intervene. And now we get what is my panel of the week, because I just think it's so great and so symbolic. Yhvark, without saying a word, smirks, and he just takes a menacing first step onto the staircase. I just love that. Like, Shutara's challenging him, and Yhvark just accepts the challenge by stepping up onto the staircase. Like, you know, he's like saying, "You're talking big, but frankly, you can't stop me." And he says that, and he kind of continues to walk up the stairs with a smile on his face. And then I believe Shutara appears beside him, or Yhvark appears beside her. It's possibly more likely that Yhvark appears beside her. He could be walking up the stairs, and he walks beside her, because then she summons those soldiers. And now the reason I think he's beside her now is because when you see him again, he's not on the staircase. He's on a flat plane. And then Shutara says something interesting. She says, "You ought to be rust on the Soul King's blade." Now, is that literal? Does the Soul King have a sword? In which case, that's quite interesting. Or is she just talking figuratively that the members of the Royal Guard's army are collectively the Soul King's blade? I think that one's probably more literal. Not literal, correct. But yeah, so the Royal Guard army guys they try and attack Yhvark, but for some reason their attacks kind of divert and they go round in a circle around him. And at first I thought Yhvark was manipulating space. Like I wasn't entirely sure how he was doing this, but he's not. Well, he kind of is. He isn't. Someone else is. Shutara's like, he's not even trying to dodge it. Why is it that I can't hit him? Then we hear this voice that says, "Who's the influent one now?" This kind of speech impediment isn't on the manga reader version, but it makes sense this character would have a speech impediment. They've got like a lisp. And this person suddenly rises from Yhvark's shadow. And, oh yes, it's a Sternritter, and I was right. I called it that Yhvark was bringing the top 3 Sternritter with him. Not necessarily the top 3, sorry, but the 3 that we haven't seen yet. The unknown 3 Sternritter have all gone with Yhvark to the Royal Realm. And so this Sternritter rises from Yhvark's shadow. And he looks pretty creepy, he looks pretty weird. And he's saying, like, as proof, just examine your own attacks, because they've all turned and they've kind of gone all over the place. And we see him, he's Sternritter W, the wind/the wind, again I'll get into that in a minute, Nyanzol Weasel. And he looks weird as hell. He kind of looks relatively normal, apart from the fact his eyes look like they're spacing out, and he's got 2 tongues. A lot of people have compared him to Wonder Weiss. I don't really see the connection, because he's clearly not... He's clearly clever, because he can talk, and everything like that. Whereas Wonder Weiss was literally just like, ah. So yeah, he's clearly not like Wonder Weiss. A lot of people have compared him to Wonder Weiss and the fact that they're being brought out as like a special weapon against strong opponents. So yeah, I can kind of see that. Another thing people have said that's quite interesting that I think I could agree with is that he's possibly the Sternritter that faced Ukitake in the first invasion. All we saw was the back of their head and they had scruffy black hair. A lot of people theorise it to be Askin, but now that we've seen Weisel, it looks actually more likely to be him. Anyway, so yeah, he says that their attacks will never reach His Majesty, to which Shutara looks on rather concerned. Now, what's going on here? When I first read it, I thought he was the wind, and he was like blowing their attacks away. But no, I don't think it is that actually. I think he is the wind, as in winding, and that he's basically bending their attacks away. So, because obviously we see at the beginning that the palace floor has been bent out of shape. So yeah, that's kind of what I think's happening. Weasel is bending their attacks out of the way. That's majorly powerful if he's doing that. And I think that's the whole tongue. That's the whole tongue thing, because they're twisted and they're winded. That's what I think. I think he's going to have like a kind of twisted, windy kind of character. Basically, that's what I think is going to happen. So yeah, he's cool. Cool to finally see one of the 3 unrevealed Sternritters. This blows my theory that Colonel Sanders is W right out of the water. I thought he was the Walk. Apparently not. Now I think he could be M. So like the Mark, or the Marksman, or the March, something like that. If he's even still alive. I think he probably is. Anyway, it returns now back to the ground below, where we see the cannon rising from the floor, which Urahara Miuri made. And nothing really happens here. We just find out that Yoruichi's going with them to the Royal Realm, which is pretty cool. And then there's the 3, 2, 1 countdown, and the chapter ends with the cannon blasting off. So that's it for this week's chapter, guys. I really liked it, actually, and I'm going to drop a 9 on it right now. The Royal Realm section, even though there wasn't an awful lot of content, I thought it was drawn fantastically. A myriad of angles just made the scene so much more cinematic, which is what the Royal Guard bit needs to be. It needs to be epic, it needs to be cinematic, and it just needs to focus on Yhorlok's slow, calm, and controlled advance towards the Soul King. My panel of the week was undeniably the one where he takes a step up to face Shutara, because it was just so great. There was a lot of magnitude, a lot of gravity, and I thought it was just done really well. What I didn't like about this chapter, the ending was quite lackluster. Ichigo and the others going to the Royal Realm, yay, who cares? Quite frankly, they're not going to defeat Yhorlok there. I really don't think they are. There's too many Sternritter left for this to be the final fight, and I'm pretty certain with the way this is going, Yhorlok's going to make it to the king, kill the king, or do whatever he wants to do, and take over. That's what I think is going to happen. Especially since he is effectively walking around the Royal Guard at the moment, and the other two, he and the other two haven't actually done anything yet. So yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. I've seen people think Orihime might fight Weisel, because she might be able to reject his bending. So that'd be kind of cool. That'd be a bit of a weird fight. But yeah, that's it for this week, guys. 9 out of 10. I wasn't keen on Pepe's fate, but that's just because I wasn't keen on what Kuwa did with Pepe in the first place. Didn't like the reused panel, and I kind of feel like that bit at the beginning took a little bit too long. So yeah, check this week's chapter out, guys. That main segment in the middle is really worth reading. It's really cool. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of this week's chapter. What do you think of Nine-All Weisel? Do you think he's cool? Do you think you excited to see what he can do? Are you excited to see more of the Royal Realm? I don't think we're going to go back to the Royal Realm next week. I think we're going to continue on with the fight down below. So yeah, that's it for this week, guys. I'll catch you next time. As always, subscribe. That'd be really nice. And yeah, other than that, see you later.